Thank you for watching St. Honore Bread on YouTube. Today we're mixing a bulk batch of sourdough. My recipe calls for 150 grams of sourdough starter, active, so I take the amount that I have and I'm going to divide it by 150. Looks like I can make 14 batches, but for this video I'm going to just do 7. So you're going to have to pour the starter into another bowl so that you can measure out exactly how much you need. So again, we're going to do 150 grams and then we can get 7 batches at least out of this amount of starter. So that's 1,050 grams of active sourdough starter. So we're going to start pouring the starter into another bowl until we have 1,050 grams. Now we're going to go ahead and pour this active starter into another container. This will be the container that we mix the sourdough batch by hand. Now we need to go ahead and start figuring out how much water we will need. So we're going to do 315 grams of water times 7, which is 2,205 grams of water. Again, I have my same bowl that I just took my starter out of, and I'm going to start pouring the water in until it reaches 2,205 grams. Now we'll pour the water into the starter and mix it pretty thoroughly. So just keep stirring until it's really well incorporated. Flour is 475 multiplied by 7, 3,325 grams. So I'm going to go ahead and start adding that to my bowl. And I always use unbleached, unenriched, all-purpose, and bread flour. I use a mixture of both kinds of flour. In my area, I find that the best place to get the flour from is Gordon Food Service, but you might find better luck at Costco or Sam's Club. I'm going to give my water and starter one more stir before I pour the flour into the mixture. Now we're going to pour that flour into the water and the starter, and we're going to mix it until everything is wet and there is no dry bits of flour that we can see. I usually use a spoon, such as a wooden spoon or a stiff spatula or silicone spoon. Sometimes I'll use my hands, but it's very wet and sticky, so I like to just use the spoon or the spatula. I find that this part does take quite a long time, especially if you're working with a large amount. But you just need to keep stirring and stirring until you get all the wet parts into the dry parts and all the dry parts into the wet parts. Now with the starter and the water and the flour all mixed together, we're going to let it rest for 30 minutes. So go ahead and put a lid right on there. After 30 minutes, you're going to want to figure out how much salt you'll need. For this recipe, it's 15 grams of salt. So we're going to multiply that by 7 for a total of 105 grams of salt. Usually I'll use pink Himalayan salt, but for this video today, I'm just using white regular salt. Now you're going to pour the salt right onto the dough. Again, this is a half an hour after we last mixed it. We wanted it to rest for that 30 minutes. So to start mixing the salt in, I push my fingers down through the dough and pushing the salt down inside of the dough. After this step, we're going to just start mixing the dough by hand. So I grab a corner and I just sort of pull it up and towards the middle. This part of the process is definitely the most time consuming when mixing by hand. But just keep going and going until you feel like you don't feel any more salt in the dough and that everything's really incorporated nicely. After the dough is mixed thoroughly, you're going to put a lid on it and let it rest for another 30 minutes. We've skipped ahead now to the next part, which is the first set of stretch and folds. So you wet your hands in water. I usually do it in the sink, but for this video I have a small bowl. And you just pull up on one side of the dough and then wet your hands again, pull up on another side of the dough, and you don't want it to really break apart. You want to try to keep its shape there, so I'm only pulling up a little bit. Turn it, and this is called a set of coil folds, so I'll alternate between either of these, either stretch and folds or coil folds. Sometimes you have to give it a little shake to separate it from the sides of the container. This step is really important because it builds the gluten network. It makes the gluten strong in the dough. So you want to make sure that you're doing these stretch and folds or coil folds every half an hour, at least 3 or 4 times. If you find that your dough doesn't look or feel stiff and strong, then I would try to do at least another 1 or 2 sets of stretch and folds or coil folds. You can see that the dough is getting to be really heavy and strong now. It wants to stay together, so it's actually lifting the container as I try to pull it up. This is where having another set of hands might be better than just doing it on your own. And you can see that the dough is very elastic and it definitely is ready to do the bulk proofing. This is a time-lapse video of the dough proofing on the counter for about 8 hours. You're going to want to let it proof undisturbed for this amount of time, at least until it's about 50% higher than the line. So not quite doubled, and you want to make sure that you've got it not overproofed. I've already posted the video where I shape the sourdough. Please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any updates from our channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.